So you may have noticed that the Sailor Moon vlog came out a bit early. That was intentional. You see, I don't want to taint my birthday with the worst episode of Sailor Moon. So, instead, I decided to release another basement reviewer this week, covering my favorite gaming franchise, Portal. This is the first time I've ever released 2 reviews in 1 week, so hey, a little special treat in honor of my big day. See, back in 2020, I reviewed Portal 2 and why it's my favorite game of all time. A statement that I still hold to this day. Portal 2 is one of my favorite videos I've ever made, partially because I got to replay my favorite game of all time, Portal 2, but it does lead one to wonder. I mean, Portal 2 is obviously a sequel. So, how well does the first game hold up nowadays? Well, I'm sure you can guess by the title, so let's just go into why Portal 1 is a fun ride. One thing that should never, and I mean never, go overlooked is just how revolutionary Portal actually was at the time. And I mean more than just how its humor shaped the internet. Everything about the gameplay was carefully crafted in order to create the best experience for the player possible. You can really tell just how much love and care was put into even the smallest detail. For example, Portal was originally a game called Narbacular Drop during its production. At some point, the devs learned that people thought portals led to alternate dimensions. In order to fix this, they put the first portals in direct sight of each other. This tells the player that they connect to each other, by having them both see where the portals go, and see that going in one leads to the other. Another trick they pulled out was a solution to a problem many Team Fortress 2 players know well. The fact that gamers just don't look up, man. They have many key factors to make the players look up when they need to, such as the design of levels guiding players' eyes upward, or a platform's movement catching their eye. This is important because momentum is a key mechanic that the game uses frequently. In order to get momentum, one has to often jump from a high spot into a portal. Small changes like this vastly shape the gameplay experience and make the gameplay both fun and memorable. They also have to decide what is too easy and what was too hard, and as they state that if it's too easy, the puzzles aren't satisfying, but if it's too hard, then, well, players feel stupid for not knowing the answer. Difficulty is something I originally criticized Portal 2 for, and I want to walk that statement back. I don't think Portal 2 or Portal are especially difficult games to beat, but now I understand that it was never really meant to be a difficult game, and it's kind of unfair to criticize it for that. Also, when doing some research, I came across a message board from someone saying Portal 2 is too hard, and I found this really great reply. Well, it seems like Call of Duty fan is learning that other games exist. Good for him. Good for him. I'm very happy. Anyway, like I was saying, the portal mechanic is what the entire game is tied around. I mean, the game is called Portal. What else would it be? Portals are used in a variety of ways to complete the test. You use them to get up high, tie buttons, or cubes, or other things. This opens up the level design because movement, speed, or jump height aren't the only things that dictating where you can go. The portal gun grants you a lot of freedom that you wouldn't otherwise have. Like I mentioned earlier, it grants you freedom to a lot more momentum. The hardest part of Portal is utilizing momentum in certain levels, particularly when you have to use the portal flick technique. The portal flick is when you jump from one portal and then have to quickly shoot out another portal. This can help you cover a lot of distance and gain height when needed. Also, it is satisfying as heck to pull off. There are also a lot of hazards that add to the challenge, such as turrets and energy balls. These create a threat, so it's not just about solving simple puzzles. All in all, the gameplay really ties together quite nicely. Another thing that really goes into Portal's favor is, well, Gladys is still my favorite character. She is still funny as frick, man. She serves the primary role as the villain throughout this game, kind of like she did at the start of Portal 2. Now, I should mention, the plot in this game is a little simpler. It's a lot easier to follow, there's less twists, it's a shorter game, so this all makes sense. But my main point on this aspect is, you don't got something as surprising as, say, Wheatley's betrayal in the second game, but you do get a nice, short little story. It's not as good as Portal 2's story, but I still quite like it. It's still a very functional plot. And this game, it's carried by its humor, really, not by its story. Still, the humor is surprisingly good.
We are pleased that you made it through the final challenge where we pretended we were going to murder you. We are very, very happy.
There's so many good lines from some of my favorite characters. However, there are noticeably few characters in this. Portal 2, you have a lot more. You got Wheatley, you got Cave Johnson, you got Gladys, just like here, and you got the personality spheres, which, granted, they are present in this game, but they're not really much here. The Curiosity core is kind of funny, but the cores in Portal 2 are just so much better. But I think this is probably the biggest detriment to Portal 1. It really does give you a feeling of isolation, and I think that's what they were going for. So this isn't like a big issue or anything, it's just the characters in Portal 2 really made it a much more compelling experience, because every character was a lot of fun, and it was nice meeting them, whereas in Portal 1 you're just kind of stuck with Gladys, who is great, but you do kind of wish you had something else. However, that's not the biggest problem. Portal's problem is the fact that Portal 2 exists. And let me explain this a little bit, because that sounds absolutely crazy when you say it. Like, why is Portal 2 a problem for this? My reasoning here is, well, why would I play Portal when Portal 2's there? Portal is a game that is overshadowed by its sequel. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not really a fault for that. In fact, one might even argue it's a good thing, because it means the series only got better as it went along. However, it does mean that Portal 1 is kind of forgotten about in a lot of spheres. People don't generally talk about this one nearly as much as its sequel, and I think that's a darn shame. I still enjoy Portal for what it is, but I mean, like I said in the Portal 2 review, everything was improved upon. There was not one aspect of Portal that isn't better than it was in Portal 2. I mean, the story in Portal 2 is so much more complex, and it's written just as well, if not better. The characters are better. Gladys is far more interesting in Portal 2 than Portal 1. And, I mean, Wheatley is great. I love Wheatley. He's not in Portal 1. He's a Portal 2 exclusive. Cave Johnson's amazing. You don't get that. Also, just the level design in general, you can really tell they started mastering their craft in Portal 2, whereas in Portal 1, they were still very much beginners. I don't know if it's fair to hold Portal 2 this, because at the time, it was still revolutionary, it was still great, but nowadays, with the power of hindsight, which, of course, hindsight is 20/20, there's just not much to this one compared to the sequel. So there's not as much reason to go into it, but I still enjoy it for what it is. It is still a fun trip, and if you've got a few hours to kill, you can beat this in like 3 hours. So I definitely recommend you still go back and play it. Despite being overshadowed, I'd be miffed if I said that I didn't like it. It's overshadowed, sure, but it's still a fantastic game. The love and care put into it is undeniable and amazing, and if you ever get time, I highly suggest that you go through the game with developer commentary on. That is one of my favorite features. I really think more games should put this in. So in Portal and Portal 2, there is a developer commentator mode that you can activate. It gives you these little speech bubbles, and when you activate them, you get to hear them comment on how they made the game, how they came to decisions. That's how I got a lot of the information I used in the early segment of this video. That's how I knew about Narbacular Drop. That's how I knew that the portal technology was a bit tricky for people to figure out at first. So I highly recommend that you go through developer commentator mode if you're a fan of this series. It's really interesting. I really enjoyed this game, and I really enjoyed this review. So, with that said, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, I hope you guys have a good day.